All right, Jonathan, you guys are good to go.
Thank you, Jared. Welcome, everyone, and good morning. It's great to have you all here. Just as a reminder, we can keep our microphones on mute. Should you have any questions throughout the duration of the event, please feel free to input them into the chat. On behalf of the Education Committee, we welcome you today to our event and compliments the committee for putting together a wonderful winter series of education. And certainly this is going to be a great day today. With that said, I have the absolute distinct pleasure to introduce our special guest, Mr. Bob Ford, who is one of the most respected and accomplished club professionals in the United States. With a career spanning decades, Bob has become a leading figure in the golf industry, and he's renowned for his professionalism, expertise, and his remarkable contributions to the game. Bob's tenure as a head golf professional at two of America's most prestigious clubs, both Oakmont in Pennsylvania and Seminole Golf Club in Florida, has solidified his standing as a true ambassador of the sport. Both clubs are regularly ranked among the top 10 courses in the country, and Bob's dual role at Oakmont during the spring and Seminole during the winter is a rare but prestigious arrangement that highlights his unparalleled reputation in the community. Bob exemplifies the ideal club professional. His skill set, standing merchandiser, and gifted player, and a respected teacher makes him a complete professional. His ability to teach the nuances of the game in an accessible way has earned him admiration from his peers and golfers alike. Above all, Bob is known for his integrity and sportsmanship, consistently embodying the qualities of a gentleman in every aspect of his career. Bob's extensive accomplishments as a player are equally as impressive. He has competed in 10 PGA championships, 3 US Opens, and 5 senior PGA championships, among numerous other prestigious events. His career has been marked by consistent excellence, as evidenced by his 9-time selection as the Player of the Year in the Tri-State PGA section, and also 16 years of service on their board, including section president. In addition to his playing achievements, Bob's leadership and contributions to the golf community have been recognized with numerous awards. He was named National PGA Merchandiser of the Year in 1985 and 1997, the only person to achieve 2 National Merchandiser of the Year awards. He was also awarded the National Club Professional of the Year in 1987 and received the prestigious Bob Jones Award in 2017, which is considered one of the highest honors in the game of golf. His introduction to the PGA of America Hall of Fame in 2005, along with his inclusion in multiple Halls of Fame, further speak to his lasting impact on the sport and others. Bob Ford's legacy is not only built by his competitive success, but also his dedication to the craft of club professionals' work and his influence in the next generation of golfers, moving upward of 70 professionals into leadership positions in the industry. Ironically, as of now, the only thing that it's seemingly missing that Bob does not have is a Wikipedia page. But in honor of that, it's an honor to acknowledge Bob Ford as one of the finest and most accomplished club professionals in the history of the game. And thank you for being here with us today, Bob. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Reed Howie. Reed, who will be leading the conversation today. Reed is the director of golf at Piping Rock Club since 2022. He's a Met PGA board member, liaison to the assistance committee, and is currently spearheading the mentorship initiative, which we will cover towards the end of our program. Prior to Reed's 7 years in the metropolitan section, he worked for Bob for 5 years at Oakmont and Seminole from 2014 to 2019 before accepting the head golf professional position at Manhattan Woods. Reed, thank you very much for your efforts here today and everyone for putting this all together. At this time, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And just want to reiterate and say thank you to Bob for coming on today and sharing a little bit of knowledge with us. Jonathan had to read that whole list just because there is no Wikipedia page for you. So you're hard to find some intel on, but excited for our conversation, excited to share some of the knowledge that you've shared with me over the years and kind of learn some new things along the way as well. So Bob, thanks again for joining us.
Peter, thanks. And Jonathan, thanks for that. I don't know where that came from, but it was nice to hear that, when you're retired and you get asked to do something, you're apt to do it. And I'm privileged to be with all of you today. The Met section is the greatest section in the country. And I'm glad to have a couple of our former guys up there. So look forward to today.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Bob. So we've got about 50 years of a career to cover now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But start by giving us a little bit of a early life look, and then kind of how you got into the game of golf, how you sort of started to pick golf as a profession. What were some defining moments early in your career, early in your life?
You know, I guess in high school, I started as a caddy at Aronimink in Philadelphia. My folks were members there. They were nice enough to let me caddy. And, you know, after a couple of years of doing that, I knew that the people that I had come to meet caddying were the people that I wanted to be around the rest of my life. And really my goal coming out of college was to play the tour like most everybody. And luckily, you know, back then, a lot of guys worked in the summers and played in the winter, which is what I did. So I got lucky enough to come in contact with Lou Worsham at Oakmont, and he was good enough to hire me and let me pursue. You know, I said to him, "What do you think I should do in my career?" He said, "Well, come to Oakmont, work for me, and I'll find out whether you're any good or not." And thank goodness I wasn't good enough, and got very lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about their story behind going to the 71 Open at Marion. Your mom took you over there, right?
She did. She volunteered a lot for the Philadelphia IVB Classic in the day, and then Marion was coming, so I tagged along with her a couple of times at White Marsh, and then we did the Open together at Marion. It was a fun, you know, obviously incredible for me to watch those guys and see all the great players of the game. And you know, I was 17 at the time, and then I went to school in Tampa and realized the Open was going to be at Oakmont in '73. My folks had moved from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh in '71. So all of a sudden, my college summers were spent in Pittsburgh, which was the biggest break of my life, really. And I wrote to Mr. Worsham from school, and oddly enough, I got a reply letter from him saying, "I'd like to have you, you know, work the month of June for me." So that's how we got teed up at Oakmont.
Awesome. And so you mentioned that had you started working at Palma Ceia in Tampa before you sent that letter to Lou, or?
No, actually came after that. I guess working for Lou kind of inspired me to, you know, get a part-time job during college. And Gil Gonsalves was the professional at Palma Ceia in Tampa, and was nice enough to hire me for those last 2 years of my school.
Awesome. Any other notes from Tampa, your time at school, any other memories or kind of things that really made you feel like, hey, I want to be a golf professional?
Well, I remember I wanted to play the tour. I don't know where that came from. I guess I wasn't a good amateur player. I wasn't a good junior player. I wasn't a good college player. But my senior year, crazy enough, I shot 65 in the Tampa Amateur, and Gary Koch tied, you know, I tied Gary, lost to him in a playoff. But all of a sudden, you know, you have one good event, and you think you're a tour player. So that's kind of where that thought came from.
Awesome. And that's but that was kind of the leading point to going to reaching out, getting hired by Lou then at that point?
Yeah, it made me drive down to see him. He was a pro at Coal Ridge in the wintertime. He had a dual jobs as well. Back in that era, it was a little more common. And gave my resume, gave him what I did with Gary, and he said, "Well, come up this summer and we'll see if you're any good."
What would Mr. Worsham classify as any good? Like what would his definition be? What got you kind of that spot and got you differentiated got you hired, really?
Yeah, I wasn't really going there to get a job with him. I really was just looking for his advice. My folks played golf, but they weren't really, you know, high golf IQ. So I was kind of taken back, and I really said to him, he said, "Come up to Pittsburgh." I said, "Well, what would I do?" And he said, "Will you be my assistant?" I was like, kind of stunned a little bit. And but I'd gotten to know his son, who worked for him as an assistant, and the one other guy that was there. They only had two assistants, and the one guy left on him, and he needed somebody. And I guess it was probably March when I went to see him, so it was pretty late in the season. So I guess he was desperate.
Funny how things work, right?
for sure.
What did assistant pro life look like back in the 70s?
Well, very different than you all had it in your careers, but his son and I, we actually many afternoons, like about 4:30, we put the shop on automatic pilot and we went out and played. So it was just wasn't busy like it is today. It got busy quite quickly, but those late 70s, it was kind of a dream.
Yeah. What did as an assistant, what lessons you learned from Lou Worsham and how kind of more about how to conduct yourself and how to be a golf professional?
Well, it was a slow process. I think, just watching him handle himself and the few difficult situations that happened up there. Um, he was very kind and generous and never very confrontational. In that era, he didn't go to committee meetings, he didn't go to board meetings, he didn't really get tied up. There wasn't really a lot of, you know, uh, politics going on at the time. So didn't really learn much in that regard, but just watch him and learn really.
Yeah. So let's transition, I guess, into getting the job at Oakmont. And what was that experience like? How much lead time did you know when Lou was leaving? And how'd you get yourself ready for the interview and talk about that process a little bit?
Well, I actually had to formulate a resume, which I didn't know how to do at the time. The only resume I've ever had in my life. And, there was a process. Sadly, it was, as Jack knows, it was about an 18-month project. And, in that era, they were coming out of the era of tour players being club professionals. But the rumors for 18 months were, we're going to get Dale Douglas, we're going to get Billy Casper. Some of the members were keen on getting another former tour player. So I just kind of, just did my job really and waited it out. Obviously, it was worth waiting for. And, there were 6 people that they interviewed. And, I was just, a nice kid at the right place and played well those next few years as an assistant. And, got the break of a lifetime.
Yeah. Could you pinpoint anything that differentiated you as the guy on the staff to be the candidate to be the guy?
Well, there was only his son and I, and his son wasn't going to be a candidate, was not a candidate, which, was unfortunate, but then kind of tough politically for me because he was actually a mentor of mine as well. He taught me a lot. I spent more time with him than I did with his dad, but, I was there. So everybody got to know me for 5 years and, which is key. I played a lot of golf with a lot of members and which is, we'll get into a little bit later, but, I guess I just, I don't know why they picked me. I'm glad they did. I was just a kid at the time, obviously, and the other candidates were all, successful PGA professionals at the time. And I guess I was the easy choice.
Yeah. I think that's something that I try to imply on assistants and interns is like try to make yourself the easy choice, right? If you can work in a way where you make yourself the obvious candidate, it's pretty hard to pass you up. So that's something that I try to pass on to my guys as much as possible. Let's move into kind of now you got the job. You're with 25 at the time, moving into one of the best jobs in the country. Did it take you a whole lot of time to gain support amongst the club to kind of establish yourself as a young pro? And is there anything that specifically you did to make sure that you kind of gain the respect of the membership right off the jump?
Uh, well, I think from a work ethic standpoint, I was, I lived on the property for, I don't know, 35 years or 30 years, I guess. So, you know, the 5 years I was living on property, I was just there all the time. You know, I think from a work ethic standpoint, they respected that. Uh, you know, my early years was smoke and mirrors for me. I had no idea what I was doing. Uh, you know, I guess I did run the books for him the last 2 years, so I kind of knew how to run the business. The shop at the time was really 98% of our income, his and mine, when I took over. So the shop became very important. It only did 100 and a quarter in his last year. So his ending inventory was 18,000, which I took over in November. He gave me a year to pay for it, and by June I, you know, paid him back his money. So the shop thing came really easy for me. It was a passion of mine, obviously, because my income depended on it, but I also really enjoyed it. And so that part of it was easy. You know, the rest of it kind of learned on the go. And I had a couple of mentors in Pittsburgh, Ken Pizik at Longview Club and Phil Newcamp at St. Clair, who I spent a lot of time with, you know, learning the tricks of the trade. And you know, you got to have mentors. You got to have people out there you can go to and ask for help. And which I had some good guys. And you know, after a couple of years, it got to be pretty easy for me.
Yeah. Let's talk about hiring that first team. You had John Weidinger, Tim Bennett, Jack Druga on this call. How'd you go about that? How'd you find the right people? And that was a team that was with you for quite some time, right?
A couple of years, you know, every couple, 2, 3, 4 years, you know, we kind of turned over. But you know, John, I had spent a lot of time at Mayaku in the wintertime down in Palm Beach, and he was the top assistant there. And you know, I had no idea what I was doing, but I, you know, brought him up, obviously. And you know, quite frankly, I don't recall how I got Tim Bennett, but he was terrific for the years that he was with me. And Jack, you know, everybody loved Jack and respected him. He was a good player, you know, better player than I was as an amateur and in college. And so he's been a godsend for me.
What one of the first things that, as a head professional, that you have to learn how to do is delegate. Was that something that you found challenging at all in your early years?
Yeah, I think so, because there were only a couple of us, you know, running the business. So it was difficult for sure.
Do you find any obviously you played a lot of golf, played a lot of tournament golf, and we'll get into kind of some of your travel and some of the things that you saw in preparation for some of your open championships and hosting responsibilities. But how did you balance those things and making sure that obviously you put a lot of time in, you made sure you're there, but then feeling comfortable with the team and making sure that they're doing what you needed them to do when you were not?
Well, I think faith and trust. Turn this off. You know, you gotta trust the people you have, and you gotta give them responsibility and delegate to them. And you know, most of them rise to the occasion. There's only been a few that didn't do so well, but that became easy for me because I knew to survive that's what I had to do. So and everybody's amazingly, some better than others, but you know, rose to the occasion.
Yep. Awesome. I guess my next question is, was there a point where you would consider yourself established in the job, where you felt like you kind of had a pretty good feel of what was going on? Obviously, you came in green and were learning on the job, and you still learning probably through your entire career. But was there a point where you felt like you started to feel better or more comfortable?
I think in the late '80s, you know, I started to feel confident that I could handle the job, and you know, probably, you know, I started in '80, so '85 through '90, you know, I started to, you know, feel better in my boots, and And it was, it was fun for me. It was more of a lifestyle than a job. It was something I loved going to. I loved it every day. And, if you love what you do and it comes easy for you, people think at least that you're pretty good at what you do.
That's a great point. And you've said that all the time throughout the years is more of a lifestyle than a job. I think that's so important for young professionals and really for all of us to kind of keep that in the forefront of our minds in a lot of ways. So let's transition to start talking about hosting a US Open. First one you hosted on the job was 1983, so 4 years. Talk to me about the run up to that, how you got yourself ready and kind of where you looked for inspiration and advice on running an event like that.
Well, I was lucky enough to qualify in '80 for the US Open at Baltusrol. So, I reached out to Bob Ross, and he became a great mentor of mine as well. And when we played practice rounds, then we'd go work in the shop and work in the tent, I guess. And he was a great merchandiser, one of the best premier guys in the country. And so I learned a lot from him. In '81, I went to Marion, where the Open was, when David Graham won. Spent the week there working in the tent again. So that's really kind of where I learned how I wanted to handle it. And the vendors played a great role in helping me. Jack was there every step of the way and played a great role as I ended up playing in '83, and he kind of ran the show for me. And, back then it wasn't quite what it is today. So it was kind of a mom and pop operation. I took the cash down and put it between the mattresses at night and, waited till the bank opened on Monday. But it was incredible. We went to the Masters as well and learned obviously a great deal from Dave Spencer and Bob Fleckty at the Masters. And it was a lot of work, but again, it was fun doing it and looking back on it, and very incredible opportunity.
You have any memories of that week specifically, kind of between playing, practicing, running the show? Jack do anything to make it entertaining?
Well, one cute thing he did on Saturday, he got a phone call from some lady, and she said, I'm watching your club on television. We live in Pittsburgh, and my husband plays golf. Any chance I could get a tee time for him for Father's Day? And he said, yeah, that'd be easy. He said, tomorrow 11:30, I got Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, and they're looking for a game, and we'll put them with them. And she hung up, and he, I don't know what happened after that, Jack. But the other thing I remember, I played with Jim Albus and Steve Benson, a couple of club pros that I played on a cup team with in 1981. So they were my pals. I felt incredibly comfortable playing with them. I played practice rounds with Nicklaus and Palmer, and nervous as hell before the tournament. And once Thursday started, playing with my buddies, I just kind of felt like I was playing with my buddies and played nicely. And Friday I played like at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:12, I think was my tee time. And when I finished, I went to work in the shop, and then the storms came, and lights went out in the shop. The cash boxes, we used cash boxes at that time with cash in it, was all cash. And, it's dark and black in the shop, and, the lightning's banging, and it was a frenzy at that time. Jack, I hope you remember that. But I had mostly my family working for me, so I had a lot of faith and trust that those cash boxes were going to make it to me that evening. But it was terrible. Storms were awful and really shook up the pairings for the weekend. And I remember Saturday, I guess we played threesomes because people had to finish on on Saturday morning. And I played with Lou Graham and Hubert Green on Saturday, which was neat. And then Bob Gilder, just a twosome on Sunday. So yeah, it was a magical week for me. It was incredible. Great memories.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kind of one of You said it in our previous conversation, but it's kind of the Michael Block moment in a lot of ways.
Oh, God,
But
yeah.
kind of finish in the top 25 of a major championship, but you're the host professional as well. It's something incredibly special and spectacular. So Jack, what do you remember that week? Let's bring you in. I'll hear a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. Give Bob a little break here in the action. So yeah, I was part of that team. Bob was nice enough to hire me as an assistant when I got out of college. I had been around there for a while, and you know, Reed, you just getting to talk a little bit about Bob's mentorship style. You know, you work for him, you saw it in action. I would give you a good story about that year. We were obviously trying to qualify for that U.S. Open at our home course, and Bob was given an exemption back. I don't know if they still do it. I think they do. The USGA gives the host professional an exemption through the local, and you go right to the sectional. I actually played my way through the local. I wasn't given anything. I got through. I played my way through, and we went to Sharon, Ohio, was our closest sectional, and Bob and I were traveling together. And in the lead up, we were working so hard. We didn't have a chance to play or practice that much. And I was begging him to go over there, leave Pittsburgh and drive to Cleveland early so we could play 9 holes, something, just so we could have some golf in before this 36-hole, pretty important qualifier. And he was like, no, we'll leave in the afternoon. It's a couple hours. We'll leave. We'll have dinner. We'll play the next day. You know, we know how to play golf. We don't need to play a practice round. And I tell you that story because that was sort of Bob. Like, it wasn't, there was a very comforting and a very uplifting thing. Like, he knew I was going bonkers because we hadn't played in practice, but he calmed me down. He gave us the confidence to say, we both know how to play golf. We'll just drive over there and we'll play the next day. And sure enough, he was right. He got through and qualified and then made the cut. So, you know, that was just an example of his leadership, mentorship style, where he saw that I was panicking, but he wasn't going to let me panic. You know, him saying that actually calmed me down a little bit. So, yeah, it was an amazing year for a guy to be doing all the stuff that he was doing, not only the week of playing, but in the lead up to it, and then make the cut. Pretty incredible story when you think about it.
You mentioned the power going out in the cash boxes. You told me a funny story about cash boxes and your responsibilities for the week.
Yeah, we had a satellite 10 on the other side of the turnpike. Those of you that have been to Oakmont know you have to cross the bridge after you play number 1. And our sophisticated method of getting the cash was me driving a golf cart through the crowd with a shoe bag, picking up the cash, sitting on the shoe bag with the cash, and then driving it back to the shop so we could get it in the bank. Yeah, it was pretty sophisticated. It was cutting edge, you know. Yeah. I mean, I was the easiest target for a bad guy to take out on that golf cart every day. That it wouldn't have even been funny, but yeah, that's how we did it back then, 1983. It's a little different today.
Somehow you made it through. That cash got back to you, Bob.
Most of it.
You know, Jack, it it was 50 years ago. It's a bit of a blur to me, and I do remember that we went over to qualify together. Did you play any good in the qualifier? Were you close?
Yeah, I was close. I was actually. Yeah, pretty close.
One shot. Can you imagine that? Have a pro and the assistant play in the Open at their home course? Would have been incredible.
Yeah, it gets worse because Bob, I was in the clubhouse sweating it out on the scoreboard. Those of you that have played in those things, you don't really know. And then you were either in the last group or the next to the last group, and your group, you beat me out for that spot. I think you chipped in 3 times on the back 9 or something like that. I can't quite remember, but yeah, thanks. That was nice. That was a nice ride home actually, after missing by a shot and then going back to work. So thanks for that. I'm glad you had a good time. One of us had to play. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, let's transition on from the 83 Open. You also hosted the 92 Women's Open and then the 94 Open. What were some lessons that you took from 83? How did how did that allow you to kind of better prepare for those events? Either one of you can take that one.
Go ahead, Jack. No, you were gone. You were gone for 92, right?
Yeah, I went there for 92. You were on your own. I can't wait to hear about your policy and procedures manual for that tournament. Can't wait.
It was the most successful tournament we ever hosted, 92.
After I left.
No, we it was unusual. The Ladies Open was supposed to go to Marion that year, and they decided, the Hall Thompson Shoal Creek affair happened, and Marion decided to pull out at the last minute. So we were kind of thrown into the fire there, but we managed. It was called Soakmont. It rained and stormed every day, and Julie Inkster lost to Patty Sheehan in a playoff, if you remember that one. But we had the 94 Open coming, so we were selling 94 Open stuff in the tent that, and the ladies weren't too happy about it, the lady players. And, but business is business, and we got away with it. 94 came, and, Jack came back, and, honestly, without him, I don't know how we wouldn't have done so well. He was incredible. Organized, which I'm not very organized, and you kind of try to hire your weaknesses, and Jack filled mine nicely. And 94 was the hot Open. If anybody remembers back then, it was so hot that week, it was unbearable. And, but we ran it and did a nice job, I think, Jack, and Club made a lot of money, and that was great.
Jack, what were some new things that you guys did in 94 that you didn't do in 83?
Yeah, we were kind of teaming up with the USGA merch team at that point, and we kind of came up with some good ideas that we implemented for that one. And I think the USGA actually took some of the cool ideas that we came up with as far as organizing, pricing, getting the merch ready. So yeah, that was kind of a fun thing for me to watch and be part of. And I think the USGA still uses some of the things that we came up with today. They certainly did at Shinnecock in 18. They were still using some of the things they reminded me about how when that whole thing started. So yeah, that was a very successful Open. It was Arnold's last tournament, which was a very emotional week for everybody involved at Oakmont. But it was a success, thank goodness.
Yeah. Was that before online sales, or is online sales just coming into the frame?
Well, we online sales, in 83, we had, we combined with Ed Manley and Arias, and we hired Bobby Clampett to do these ads for us in Golf World magazine. So we did a little mail order. That's when the mail order really started. And I'm sure Jack and Tim Bennett and those guys, added to what they had to do. They had all the shirts in the back office, and they had to mail those stuff out to everybody. But that really sort of, USGA kind of took that and ran with it and started their mail order process. So 94, that was their deal. We weren't involved in that. But I think really 94 and Oakmont was the last Open that was run by the Golf Professional. Mary Lopinsinski took over from there. She was kind of an understudy for Jack and I at that year. And like Jack said, she learned a lot, and she's done an incredible job.
You guys kind of passed the torch on the USGA then from there. You guys did such a good job.
Sadly, yeah. And really, it's too big of a deal for the Golf Professional to do. We did about, I want to say 800 in sales in 83 and 8 million in 94, and now they're doing 20 million. So I mean, it's just grown exponentially.
I think that's a good kind of transition point to starting to kind of drift into the discussion of how the golf professionals' responsibilities have changed and expanded. I know in our kind of lead up conversation, you talked about hiring hiring a director of instruction, and let's jump into that that transition and how you kind of recognize your job was expanding. And you mentioned earlier about talking about just surviving, doing what you needed to survive, and talk about hiring Rick Martino and how that was important to your longevity there at Oakmont, kind of in the early 90s.
Yeah, Reed, I'd say that, in the 80s, I taught a great deal. I was a popular player. Oakmont's a popular place. So the city of Pittsburgh really, everybody wanted to come take a lesson from me in Pittsburgh. So, I found myself teaching 8 hours a day, and all of a sudden we're going to host this 92 Open. And I'm like, wow, I can't do all this. I'm overloaded. So we ended up hiring Rick. He was a godsend for me. He was a workaholic like I was, and everybody transitioned to him. He did a great job and took that off my plate. I didn't teach non-members anymore from that day forward, and gave me a better chance to, focus on all the other things I needed to focus on other than just teaching. So, I do miss that part of it. I love to teach, but just can't do it all. So, really lucky to have done. He worked for us for 10 years, so it's great.
Yeah. Right around that same time is kind of your life changed quite a bit with the start of your family life too. Had a couple kids right there in the early 90s as well. Can you talk a little bit about trying to sort of balance family life and making sure that you're around the family a little bit here and there, and how'd that affect your kind of the 90s for you?
Well, Reed, I think two things were, advantageous for me. Number one, I lived on the property. I lived on the 18th green at Oakmont for 25 years in a house they provided for us, which was 100, maybe not even 100 yards from the golf shop. So, I was back and forth a good bit. So that's number one. Number two is Nancy, my wife, is, just been an incredible life partner, an incredible mother, and without her, I couldn't have done it. She made it really easy for me.
Yeah. One thing you kind of mentioned when we were talking before is I mean, as golf professionals, we kind of just have to figure it out. Everybody's has their own, every club's unique, every job's unique, every family life dynamic's unique. It's on us to just make sure that you figure it out, and you got to set your priorities, make sure that you're, like you said, you're back and forth a little bit in your case. I mean, it looks different for everybody, but I think just the term "figure it out," I think is a great way to approach it.
Yeah, there's no book to pick up and read as to how to handle that. You just have to take one day at a time, and make sure that your faith's important, your family's important, your job's important, and you got to pay attention to all of them.
One other thing that you noted is talking about kind of finding the holes. A lot of us here in the Met section, we're in very seasonal jobs, and kind of understanding the seasonality of our jobs, and being able to kind of take time when the time is there to be taken. What did you do? How'd you spend your off seasons back at that time, and what are some things that professionals nowadays can do?
Well, I think everybody, has to do what they have fun doing. And fun for me was going to Florida and playing golf. So, I went down and played the Winter Series, played the Fall Tournament Series, whatever they're called now. So I just played a lot of golf. I went to South Africa 3 times in the winter and played their tour. I love to play. That's what I love to do. I'm pretty one-dimensional, as you know. And so Nancy was just an incredible supporter of that. She loved that I loved to play. She loved me doing that. And she doesn't play golf, but we sat down together. You'd think she was a golfer, because she's pretty knowledgeable in that regard. And so you just gotta, people like to ski, people like to travel, people like to do whatever they do. You need to get away. You need to do what you want to do. And Oakmont job in the wintertime was slow. And Jack, I don't think you spent any winters back there holding down the fort. Did you? Didn't you go away and play as well?
I did. Yeah, yeah. Not much going on in the winter, and luckily we were able to do that, travel and play and compete. Absolutely, Bob was a big part of Bob's feeling that it was to keep up our game and always care about our game and work at it. And it was a great lesson to learn watching him do that. And for those of us that like to play, it was important and it paid off. I think anyone that doesn't think playing is important in our career and in our next steps is missing the boat. It's very important. People take notice when you can play well.
Thank you, Jack. That's yeah, I couldn't agree more. Bob, let's talk about kind of how things evolved and how it transitioned to Seminole. Kind of a little bit on the playing aspect, but let's talk about that opportunity and how that came about and sort of your introduction to the club and ultimately taking over for Jerry Pittman.
Well, I had a couple of Oakmont members that were members at Seminole and would invite me periodically to come down and play. Luckily, I was, again, playing opportunity. That opportunity came because I played a lot of golf and I was in Florida. And so I got to play Seminole a few times and I got to meet some of the heavy honchos there that I didn't realize it at the time. I thought we were friends, just playing golf together, but they actually were interviewing me, unbeknownst to me. And, because of that relationship, Tim Neer called me in the spring of '99, I think, and said that Jerry was going to retire and, that I think Oakmont would allow me to take, a winter job. I said, I don't know, but I'd sure like to try. And went to Oakmont. They were good with it, and we did it. So that was a dream job too. To have two of them was ridiculous.
Yeah. How was it taking over that position at a place like Seminole? Obviously, the golf IQ there is kind of second to none. And where was your head at as far as coming into the job, and then how did you again establish yourself in that environment?
Well, again, it was smoke and mirrors for me early on down there. I was really nervous, apprehensive about the quality of the members, and the stature of the place is pretty incredible. And so I spent most of my time that first year on the first tee meeting everybody. And I counted at the end of the year because I wanted my guys to understand. I played with 108 different members that first year. And really after greeting everybody on the first tee, I realized all these people want to do was talk about golf. And that was easy for me. So the intimidation went away. Yeah, we got on a roll. I had two great assistants that I inherited from Jerry Pittman, Andrew Shuck and John Marino. Most of you know those names, and they were incredible. They helped me through the whole process. So then I was able to bring some of my own guys down, and you guys made it easy for me.
What would you say makes Seminole such a special place, and as far as for an assistant pro, and what is the difference there of what allows the so many assistants to go on to being head pros specifically from Seminole? Is there something that you could pinpoint?
Well, the cachet of Wingfoot and Baldwin and Oakmont and Pine Valley and Seminole. I think your resumes go to the top of the pile unfairly, but life is what it is. And I think the membership at Seminole caught on pretty quick that, you guys were all getting getting jobs, and they got a kick out of that. And they started to become, part of your adversary, not adversaries, but your advocates. And, everybody started making a lot of phone calls, and, when you hear from somebody from Seminole, it's a big deal. And, it got easier for you guys to get jobs. I don't know that any of you were qualified for the jobs you got, but it, 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 it really became easy. But, you know, to work at Seminole is, you know, you get to play, you get to practice. The caddies play every day at 2:30, for God's sake. So, you know, it's a real playing atmosphere.
Well, like you said, we took, like you said, smoke and mirrors, right? We took that from you. So made it work. Are there any philosophies from the club at Seminole, the club, and kind of how you oversaw the that operation that head professionals can take to enhance their club or their operations?
Rita, I don't know that I understand the question well enough, but you know, you guys, you know, we try to get everybody out there playing with everybody and teaching and just engage with the members. And I think members loved you guys. You know, they loved joking with you guys and teasing you, and you guys gave it back to them. And you know, the relationship was pretty incredible. And that's why they got behind all you guys.
Yep. Yeah. I think, and I think referring a little bit more to Skin's game, and I think you nailed it by encouraging the members to get out and play, engage with the staff, get the staff out to play, all that sort of stuff. I think those were kind of some of the definitive moments, and those are what played into the development of all of our guys as far as being able to have those conversations with the members when they're up for a job, and the members being able to speak knowledgeably about the guys when the time comes.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll transition now into kind of phasing out of both of those jobs. Obviously you're now into your retirement, kind of quote unquote, I guess. At least retirement is from a club professional standpoint. So Mike Diffley and Jim Smoot and Tom Henderson had a good conversation on the same channel about a month ago, discussing kind of making plans and arrangements on the back half of your career. Were there any conversations with club leadership at Oakmont and club leadership at Seminole regarding your phasing out of the positions, kind of a succession plan, anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. You know, both clubs, you know, I went to them and kind of gave them a little heads up what I was planning on doing. And, you know, they wanted to know, you know, how they should go forward finding the next guy. And, you know, we were lucky enough, and the guys were lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. And Devin Gee was my top guy at Oakmont, and he took over, and he's done an incredible job, about 8 years now. And Matt Cahill's been there 3 or 4 years now and has done a great job. You know, a cute story about Seminole was, you know, Jimmy Dunn is the boss there, and came to me and he said, you know, I want you to give me 5 names of the top 5 guys in the country to replace you. I said, okay, Jimmy, I will. And I said, give me a little bit of time. A couple of months go by and he asked me again. And yeah, I'm working on it, Jimmy. And a couple more months went by. Thank goodness, he's a busy guy. And finally, he came to the conclusion that everybody else had, that Matt was the right guy. And so he just transitioned right into Matt, which was incredible. And Matt's done a great job. At Oakmont, you know, Devin did the same thing. I mean, it you know, really wasn't a tough transition, you know, or for the board, the golf committee to get on board with Devin. It was pretty obvious that he was the next guy. So, you know, they were all very lucky.
Can you pinpoint anything with Matt and Devin that they did to kind of differentiate themselves? Obviously, both were in very competitive environments with a lot of really good people surrounding them. Is there anything that stood out with those guys?
You know, Reed, probably a little bit like me. I mean, they were there. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you're there, you got an incredible advantage if you can play, if you can teach, if you have a good work ethic, and people like you, and you know, it's hard not to take the guy that's there.
Awesome. Let's talk about a little bit of kind of what you got going on now how you've kind of stayed busy with retirement. You're obviously traveling quite a bit. You're involved with the USGA, GBN, PGA Reach, PGA Hope. Tell us a little bit about how you're filling your schedule these days.
Well, I like to tell people I don't play more than once a day. So I play a lot of golf. So there's not much time in the day left for doing much, which I don't spend a lot of time on any of those things, really. But it's nice to have your hand in them and feel like you're still contributing. I think that's really kind of the key. You don't really want to, drift into the wild blue yonder and not contribute in some way. It doesn't have to be in golf, but whether it's your church or your community, just doing something to volunteer. And I think a lot of golf professionals just kind of keep doing what they're doing and don't get the reality of I better get out of here before they throw me out. And that was my attitude. I didn't want to get thrown out of either place. And I could have gone on at both places. And but there's everybody has a shelf life, and I was 37 years at Oakmont. That's enough. It was enough for them. It was enough for me, quite frankly. And I don't know, same thing at Seminole. So you kind of got to be aware of of your end, and a lot of guys don't think about it, and sadly, it ends up poorly for them. So. As far as, I don't spend GBN, I probably spend the most amount of time on, and it's the most amount of fun for me because I still get to interact with all you guys and meet some new young people that are fabulous at what they do. And so Patrick Seether has taken that business on and has done an incredible job with it. I hope everybody gets a chance to look at that. They do some great retreats, great tournaments, great education, and it's a great networking. I think the network thing is unbelievably important to all of you out there, and you gotta stay in touch with your network and grow your network, and you gotta make sure everybody knows who you are.
I think that's a great place to transition into some of our mentorship conversation here. We kind of got a right about time, maybe a couple minutes behind, but we're in good shape here. But I think we can kind of skip down to some of the important pieces regarding networking as an assistant professional. What I would say, kind of what would you say is the roadmap for a young assistant or young associate that's looking to be a head professional, especially one that's looking to be a head professional at a top club?
Well, you got to do the job at your own club. You got to be engaging. You got to be out there with the members. You don't want to just be stuck behind the counter all day long. And you got to take advantage of the time that you're out there with them. You got to, I think another big part of the, I felt with my guys were all the vendors, getting to know the vendors, because the vendors are the they're the gossipers out there, and you want the vendors to know your name. You need to have a great relationship with all those people. I think one thing that I tried to instill in everybody was that, whoever walks through the door into your home, into your shop, you have to treat like it's your club president. You treat everybody the same way. And, people that call on the telephone, your telephone manners. I had a guy get a job just because his telephone manners were extraordinary. All those are opportunities, and you got to seize every opportunity. And you just got to be, on guard and not let your guard down, and be nice to everybody. We had a saying at both places: it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And that goes a long way.
Absolutely. All those things are massively important. How would you weigh the balance between experience versus kind of working at a top club for young professionals?
All right, help me with that one.
So just like basically chasing a, say, lead assistant position or more responsibility versus working at a top 100 or for a top professional. What would you, how would you strike that balance for a young professional?
Well, you kind of want to keep climbing the ladder and getting experience. I think, a lot of my guys had success just being at Oakmont or just being at Seminole. I guess I never had anybody just at Seminole. We did both, but there wasn't much of a ladder left to climb for them. But if you start out at a smaller club, then you want to get to a bigger club, and you want to get to a bigger name place, and you want to work for somebody that cares about you and that wants you to succeed and wants to move you on. I really didn't want an assistant for 10 years, so that would be my advice to the guys.
And I think this ties back to the importance of networks. I guess is really making sure that you get into the right circles. I think is a big point in that. And I think that's where the two tie in, is kind of making sure that you're positioning yourself to where you're going to be plugged in and in the right networks.
Yeah, for sure. You want to stay in touch with all your former guys you used to work with, and keep everybody abreast of what you're doing and how you're doing, and get people advocating for you.
Awesome. Let's take a second. Let's talk about your mentors. I know we talked a little bit about Lou Worsham, Bob Ross, Gil Gonsalves, Ken Pizzica, Phil Newcamp. Talk to us a little bit about what you learned over the years from those individuals, how you sought out mentors, or who you identified as potential mentors. I think Ken Pizzica and Phil Newcamp are perfect examples of that. And what kind of drew you to them in that conversation, or in your professional life?
Yeah, it's interesting, Reed. Mentor and mentorship really weren't words that we used back then. I was looking for advice. I was looking for help. Walker Inman was another one that that I look up to. I just looked up to certain guys and wanted to be like them, and was it was easy for me to call them and get them to call me back, and just try to learn from them. But yeah, that's about all I've got on that.
Jack, do you have anything to add on Lou Worsham? I know you knew him and worked with him as well.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Reed. Yeah, Lou Worsham really gave me my start. I mean, I was a young caddy at Oakmont, and just another one of the kids in the caddy yard. And I really Lou didn't play a lot of golf back then, so I don't know that I ever caddied for him or even was in his group. Maybe I was. I don't really remember it, but he reached out to me. When I qualified for the U.S. Amateur while I was caddying there, he got wind of it and called me in his office and asked me how I was was I okay? Did I have equipment? Was I going to be able to go to the tournament? And I told him that I would figure it out, but I think he knew it was going to be a struggle. And he went up into the SWAT room at Oakmont and raised $2,000 for me in about 15 minutes. And he came back down and gave me the money. And it was not the month. By the way, I couldn't spend $2,000 in 1977 in a month, let alone a week. And it wasn't the money as much as the effort that he made. Like, why would he do that for a caddy? Like, why would the head pro do something like that for a caddy? And that probably struck me as much as anything, that here's a golf professional who knew my name. It wasn't just like he wanted to know what I shot, where I played, where the amateur was, and that was the kind of thing that he did. I would say, and Bob would obviously say the same thing with Lou, because we were at Oakmont together. That was the kind of thing that really made me admire golf profession so much. that a guy like that would help a kid in the caddy yard. Yeah, Bob's right on the mentorship thing. It wasn't really, you weren't really taken under your wing. I mean, I watched Bob. I don't remember a lot of policy and procedures manuals, so wasn't really putting things on paper, but it was just watching him during the day and how he handled us and how he handled the members and how he handled the tricky situations that really helped me along the way. And he mentioned some of those names too that I was influenced by when I was in Pittsburgh. And some of the mentors to me, you know, again, Bob mentioned it, just being out there, were guys that I didn't work for, but I was just around and admired the way they handled things. Bill Strasbaugh at Columbia, I never worked for Bill Strasbaugh, but he was a big influence on my career just because I was around him and I watched him do things that I really thought were the right things to do, and tried to plug a few of those things into my playbook. So yeah, it was pretty different back then. You really did have to rely on the guys in the neighborhood and around you that were successful, because I think one of the cool things about our profession to everybody is how willing veteran professionals are to help the younger guys. I think it's one of the most admirable things about what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I can't stress that enough. And I think we'll get into that a little bit more with our kind of some of our mentorship initiatives within the section here, looking ahead to 2025. But can't stress it enough to the young professionals on this call that, well, you're kind of the elder professionals, the experienced guys. We're all here to help each other. So don't be scared to reach out and ask for help and look for the guys that are doing it well within your region. So I think that's extremely important. That's obviously what Bob did. That's obviously what you did as well. So I think that's a really good kind of marker to show the signs of a couple successful golf professionals really just did it by watching who did it well before them and replicating that and trying to implement those things. So awesome. Bob, I'm going to transition back to you and ask about your approach to being a mentor. When you kind of discovered a passion for developing young professionals and a little bit of a conversation of kind of how you went about identifying young professionals and with potential to be something, whether it's an assistant for you or go on to be head professionals.
Well, and we'll start with, you know, what I looked for in hiring golf professionals. You know, I guess every time that I went to play somewhere, I'd go to the shop and try to introduce myself to everybody so I could, you know, meet potential candidates, really, and just watch how everybody acted. I think the key for me was I wanted somebody that had a passion to play the game. That was number one. Their background, you know, their personality, wanted people that wanted to be on my side of the counter, not the other side of the counter. Some of the guys want to be on the other side of the counter. That they didn't work out very well. And I would say that, you know, it didn't matter how well you played, because I have some guys that worked for us that were, you know, 78 shooters that were great golf professionals. And, you know, the guys that played very well, they got out probably a little sooner. But, you know, it's more about, you know, that you want to, you know, you inspire people to play by playing and teaching. And if you don't play with your members, you won't have a relationship with any of them. You know, you really bond when you play golf with somebody. And I know I've played with a lot of you guys in the Met section, and I feel like I have a bond with you, and I could call you any minute of any day. And, you know, if you don't play, you're just kind of, hi, Mr. Smith, you know, nice to see you. How'd you play? You know, the normal stuff that we say to our members. But if you played with that guy, then you really have a bond. So that's why the assistants, you know, I did that as an assistant. And I bonded with a couple guys that really were my advocates throughout my entire career there. And, you know, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, the navigating through the politics of clubs, which, you know, is a bit of a nightmare actually, but as all of you know, but you got to have a couple guys that are really, you know, go to bat for you behind the scenes when somebody, you know, at the grill room table says something nasty about you, the guy steps in and fights for you. And you need guys fighting in your golf committee meetings. You need guys fighting for you in your board meetings. And if you don't have relationships with those guys, then you're probably going to be in trouble. So, you know, getting back to playing golf and you know, encouraging people to play golf, that's really our job, right?
100%. I know Oakmont and Semel are a little bit unique in the sense that you have the SWAT and you have the skins game that are great kind of tools for us as golf professionals to get out with members, to tell members to, hey, come play with me in the skins. The influence of those games is something that I know has been extremely impactful in my career, and I can only imagine the same on yours. Yeah, let's stick on the topic of kind of navigating some of those club politics and club boards and general managers and all that sort of thing. What were in our preliminary conversation, you talked about the importance of communication and communication with golf chairs, with general manager, with your superintendents. Talk a little bit about how you approach those relationships. You obviously have more of the personal ones on the club side of things, and then you have a little bit more professional relationships a lot of times on the actual kind of coworker side of things. How did you navigate those relationships and changing dynamics in that world?
Well, I think, you know, communication is the key. You know, I wanted my staff to know every minute of every day where I was. I wanted I never worked for a manager, but I had a great relationship with my first manager for about 17 years. And then kind of probably went downhill from there with the other managers. But, you know, I wanted my golf chairman, my club president, and the manager. I wanted them to know where I was at all times. You know, as far as some of the guys getting to play golf with their members that don't have the SWAT or the skins game, you know, I would communicate you know, people would say, well, geez, he never plays with me. And, you know, I dispelled that quickly in my communications to the members. It was like, you know, I'd love to play golf with you. Please let me know that you'd like to do the same, and I'll make sure that we get a game throughout the season. And, you know, not that everybody did that, but at least I was on record as saying I'll play with anybody. And I would play with anybody that was a member of the club. And, you know, I think you have to, you know, it's like we wait around to be invited by our members to play, but you got to take the initiative and say, look, you know, I'd like to play with you guys, you know, let me know that you'd like me to play with you, and I'll make sure that we get it done. It's not easy. The skins and SWAT made it easy for us at those two clubs, but I know it's not easy, but you got to get out there and play.
Would you rank that as the most important thing you can do as a head professional when in regards to kind of longevity, being able to kind of keep your job?
Without question. If you know, no, I don't have time to play. My job's too busy. That's BS.
Yeah.
That's an excuse. Everybody has time, and you got to make time. And it is the number one thing. You know, if you become an administrator and you're in the office all the time and you're not engaging with your members, you're in trouble. And nobody can speak for you. You're done.
Yep. Probably one of the hardest things for the modern club professional is avoiding the administrator, or trying avoiding the trap of falling into administrative work, because I feel like it's ever expanding. So Easy trap to fall into, and you got to prioritize playing, getting out there. Let's see what else. Let's I guess let's kind of transition on to we'll kind of transition on to some kind of closing remarks here, and then we'll leave some time for questions. So if we could summarize like one piece of advice for an aspiring head professional or an assistant, what would that be as a young assistant? And it's hard to summarize into one, but if you had one, if you could boil it down, what's the most important thing for an young assistant looking to be a head pro?
Well, he's got to engage with the members. Sadly, I walk into too many shops where the assistants are behind the counter. They've got their head on the computer, and they don't recognize that I'm in the shop. They don't engage with me, and everybody that walks in a shop, particularly for the first time, we're pretty intimidated by being there for the first time, for being in your home, as I call it. That guy walks through the door, you got to acknowledge that he's there, whatever you want to say to him. Hi, how you doing? The funniest example, one of the great assistant stories I ever had was Steve Archer. Mike Ruzioni comes through the door, and Steve engages with him and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Starts the conversation, and which is what you got to do. You got to engage the conversation, number one. So I said, "Well, who are you playing with today?" And he said, "I play with Mario. You, first time I've ever played with Mario." And he said, "First time you played here?" "Yeah, first time I've ever been here." He said, "Well, what's your handicap?" He said, "I'm a 5. Ruziani says to Archer, he said, "What do you think my chances of breaking 80 are?" And he said, Steve quickly said, "Well, do you believe in miracles?" Pretty cute.
It's one of my all-time favorite stories. And
pretty quick.
For everybody that knows Arch, it's right on point, right on cue.
But you got to make that guy feel comfortable and welcome. And they, believe me, they remember that. They remember the little stuff. Jack always said it's not the big stuff, it's the little stuff, and write it down. And you got to be engaging with people. And if you're not engaging with people, they don't remember you, quite frankly.
Yeah, 100%. Any other notes about professional conduct and kind of how assistants can conduct themselves and differentiate themselves from the rest of the kind of high achieving assistants in the world?
Well, the kids that play the best get the most, attention. It's like the prettiest girl, and just it is what it is. It's, not fair possibly, but it is what it is. So, you got to work on your game. You got to be engaging, and you got to be memorable. You got to make me remember you. Why am I going to remember you? And that's, because, there's a lot of assistants looking for not so many jobs, and you got to stick out from the crowd, and you got to have advocates. You got to have people really working hard for you, because it's hard to get a job today.
In your consulting work now with GBN, you've done work for a long time. What do you see as like a differentiator, some traits of the guys that are differentiating themselves and are getting the jobs nowadays? Are there any consistencies?
Just told you all that, didn't I? Guys that stick out. Yeah, same stuff. Guys that play well, the guys that have advocates, the guys that are memorable, that people know. You gotta get to know people. You don't have to be a great player to get to know people, and you don't have to be a great player to be nice and to be. There's a lot of guys that play good that are a bunch of stiffs. And but you gotta have all the tools.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out it doesn't necessarily show up on a resume either, right?
Resumes are worthless, really. I never hardly even looked at resumes. You got people calling on your behalf, and yeah. resumes, and even the interview process, it wasn't really that critical.
Yep. Awesome. Well, any advice for some of our older guys on the call as going into retirement and ways they can stay involved, stay active?
Reader, I'm going to try to. This is very difficult for me, as you know. And Jack, I don't want to hear from you. And we'll do. And if you're awake, you'd be shocked. But I'm going on my phone. All right, hold on for 1 second here. You got a plan for the future. You got to make sure financially you're ready to retire. That's number one. That you're going to start spending more time with her. You got to make sure she knows what's going on. And you got to, get some things to do for yourself so that you stay busy. You still with me, Reader?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, I think, retirement is not overrated. I promise you that. I think Jack's not retired, but, he's transitioned into doing the work for the Evans Caddy Scholarship, and he's doing some things for PGA, the PGA of America. And, you got to stay busy and keep your hand in it a little bit, I think, not full-time jobs, but, sorry about that.
Good.
But yeah, you got to be prepared. It's all about preparation. Your whole life is about preparation, right?
Yep. Awesome. Well, Bob, I'll let you go. I know you got to run here, but I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on with us, and thank you for enlightening us over the last hour and 20 minutes. And I think your career arc is one that's kind of quite interesting and all encompassing. So I hope that everybody on this call was able to take a couple nuggets and kind of a look behind the curtain on how you did it for as long as you did it for, and how you survived and navigated everything that is being a golf professional, especially at those two places. So thank you again for coming on, and obviously look forward to hopefully seeing you over the summer.
Well, Reader, I appreciate it. I've got probably 20 minutes to be in the car before I get to where I need to get to. So I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have, or we'll just cut me loose.
All right, I'll open it up. If anybody has any questions for Bob, and you can throw them in the chat right now, and we'll take about 5-10 minutes to answer those, and then we'll move on into a discussion about some of our topics relating to our mentorship initiatives that we're really excited for here in 2025 and 2026 in the Met section. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat, or anybody that's on the call from I don't know if Pat Gunning or Jack or anybody on the call here that has any questions before Bob goes, but we'll take 5-10 minutes here if we have a few questions.
Bob, it's Pat. I have a quick one for you. I know I worked for you at Seminole for a bunch of years, and there wasn't much turnover in leadership at a place like Seminole, but at Oakmont, what are some things you did to educate new people coming on your board or new presidents throughout your tenure there?
Well, Pat, I will tell you that, probably the least favorite thing that I had at Oakmont was, and believe me, Oakmont was an incredible job. I loved every minute of it, but the politics are brutal at all clubs. And, new golf chairmen and new presidents every couple of years is a nightmare. And, the golf chairmen, I tried to educate by, having a sit down with them once they got, appointed as the chairman. I just say, you're going to get a lot of calls from people requesting things, and perhaps they've already talked to me, and they've gone over my head and come to you. And I would just say before you answer them, if it's a tough question, that you call me first before you answer it. And, Jimmy Dunn was the ultimate leader. And every time somebody would call him instead of me, he'd say, "What'd Bob say?" And they'd say, "Well, I didn't talk to Bob. I suggest you call him." And, that's the kind of guy you want, watching your back. And, the guys at Oakmont, that didn't work quite the same way at Oakmont. And, but, there's not too many difficult situations. It's just, again, communication, I guess, really. I mean, for me to survive, I wanted them to know where I was at all times. Any tough questions, I always got back to them, let them know, what had happened, give them the full tilt. I finally got to go to board meetings after 20 years, after, the late 90s, I guess. I don't know how, clubs operate with their 3 executives not in the boardroom with them. And, back in my day, most GMs were not, weren't in charge of the golf professional superintendent back then. That really started happening in the mid to late 90s. And it's really, really difficult when you have got to answer to a general manager that doesn't know anything about golf or doesn't know anything about the golf course. That's where so many of our situations fail. And, every time that we have a meeting in GBN with a, club officials and whatnot, I try to get that message through. The other thing I try to do is ask them if they have an internal candidate, and ask them, why they're going through a search if they have an internal candidate. And, I always try to get the assistant hired if I can influence that. And obviously if he's a worthwhile candidate, really tough to navigate all that, Pat, as you know.
Thanks, Bob.
Not seeing anything in the chat at the moment, but any last questions from anybody that's on the call here?
Hey, Reed, can I jump in there?
Yeah, jump in, Joe.
Hey, Bob, thanks for a great chat today. Took a lot from this, so thanks for making some time out of your day for us up here in the Mets section. Just kind of a 2-part question here. I'm just curious, do you have any mentors outside of the golf industry that you would say helped you throughout your career? And then second question was, if you were starting this process, this journey of being a PGA professional all over again, would you have done anything differently in the beginning?
Joe, no, I don't think I would have done anything different. It's a long time ago for me to remember, quite frankly. Mentors outside the golf business, I don't think I know anybody outside the golf business. Certainly some members were certainly mentors of mine. I looked up to a lot of members and, tried to get close to them, and they were advocates of mine, pretty much my entire career. Outside the golf business, no, I'd have to say I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but the sales reps were all real important to me. Treating them with kindness and respect, and making them feel important. It's as a golf professional, it's not about you. It's about everybody else. And people remember how you treat them. They might not remember what you say, but they remember the warmth and the kindness, and that stuff goes a long way. And I wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but I certainly never tried to offend anybody.
Awesome.
Bob, I think
Thank you.
I was going to say, I think one thing that you always did well is you were always pretty capable of finding the smartest guy in the room.
You were one operator.
I don't know about that. So maybe I got one more question here. Bob, we got one question from the chat here of how far in advance did you start talking to Oakmont and Seminole regarding your retirement?
Well, I think that's a great question. Because you don't want to do it too far out. I would say 18 months probably would be it. I think Oakmont certainly knew of they probably knew 2 years out. I'd say not more than 18 months or 2 years.
Yep. Also, anybody on this call, if you want to refer back to the conversation with Tom Henderson, Jim Smoot, and Mike Diffley, that was back. It's on the Met PGA YouTube channel and on the website. Really good conversation about kind of having those conversations with your clubs and also then preparing yourself for retirement. So there's a lot of really good information there as well, in addition to our conversation today. Any last questions before we let Bob go?
Well, Reader, I will say goodbye. I'll say thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be with all of you fellow golf professionals and guys and gals, and we need more girls in the PGA of America. We get asked that a lot in our searches. Do you have a girl for us, a woman? And so it's great to see the gals getting involved. I have beyond description admiration for the Met section. I know Jeff does an incredible job. We've got a great executive director in the tri-state and in the South Florida section where I'm at. Both those sections, those guys are really important to your career. I just thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate your time and appreciate the conversation and all the wisdom, being able to share all this wisdom with the Met section here, and a lot of things that are kind of invaluable from a story, and also but things that I think everybody can take from this call. So thanks again, and hopefully you're off to play golf somewhere.
Not today. It's going to storm today, but I'm picking some guys up at the airport, so that's why I had to run. But thanks, Reed.
All right, Bob. Take care. We'll cut you loose. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I hope you got how to enjoy that conversation with Bob and enjoyed that conversation. We want to transition to a conversation about our Met PGA mentorship program. I'm going to bring Jonathan Gold back in here, who's helping to lead these efforts from the section side of things and from the national side of things. And we're going to introduce some of our initiatives here for 2025 and 2026. We're all really excited about the program we have in place and some of the plans we have for the calendar year. And we've got some fellow professionals that have volunteered to take leadership at a regional level on these initiatives, and excited to have them on the call as well. So Jonathan, I'm going to pass it on to you. Give a little bit of a background about mentorship within the Met section, and then we'll discuss what were our plans for 2025 and 2026.
Yeah, Reed, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and great job on the call with Bob. That was amazing. I hope everyone got at least a few nuggets to take away from that conversation. Well done. So how we got to where we are today, as you all know, mentorship is a cornerstone of the Metropolitan PGA. It has been with us from day one, and it's something that we take great pride in, whether it's, you're a head golf professional and you're mentoring your assistants, or you're recognized as someone that if in time of need, someone can go to you. And one of the best things about our network of, frankly, Met PGA members is everyone is there to help each other. We're all here to lift each other up, regardless if it's in times of need, but we're here for one another. And having 700 people do that together is amazing. So last year, if a lot of you can remember, we launched a really formalized, structured Metropolitan PGA specific mentorship initiative. It was the first one to be launched in the country at a section level. And now throughout time, other sections have followed suit. Essentially how we did that is that we took everyone that was registered for the deferred compensation program, and then we paired you as a mentor with a mentee. The reason why we used the deferred compensation program was because if you were to conduct 10 hours of mentorship through deferred comp, that would qualify for 150 points out of the 200 points that you would need to achieve deferred compensation points or the requirement. And last year, many of you through the mentorship program achieved that and earned $1,500 into a vested retirement account. So what I say that is, if you haven't registered for deferred comp, that's one of the ways that we'll be able to get you involved with the mentorship initiative. I think we have over 265 current Metropolitan PGA professionals enrolled, so that's amazing, one of the highest percentages in the country. So well done there. And then be on the lookout for some communication as well. I totally respect, and we totally respect that if you're enrolled in deferred comp and do not wish to participate in the mentorship initiative, maybe just don't have enough time, that's great. We'll be sending out a form for you to complete as well to opt out, as well as those that have not elected into the deferred compensation program but still want to participate in the mentorship initiative. We absolutely would embrace that, and we'll send you a form to complete for you to opt into the mentorship initiative. So Reed, with that said, that's kind of like how we got here today. Year one was a great success. A lot of really good stories about our professionals connecting with one another, and provide a little bit of insight on where we're going with the initiative for our year two and for 2025 and 2026.
Absolutely. So, yeah, thank you, Jonathan. And I think it is worth saying that, like Jonathan said, we were the first section to create a mentorship program through the deferred comp package here in the Met PGA. And Jonathan was the focal point of that. So that was a huge lift on his end. And he really advocated for us as professionals to get that done and to get that as an opportunity as part of the deferred comp program within the National PGA. And I think it's worth saying, I've referenced the call that happened a couple months ago, the educational event, talking about retirement and planning for retirement. But if you're on this call and you haven't started preparing for retirement, now is the time to do so. We won't get into too many details, but I would suggest that you go back and watch that educational seminar from February. There's a lot of kind of specific points that you can take in there, but we'll focus on deferred compensation, and it's an easy $1,500 that you can get to start into your retirement account and start compounding annually just by signing up. Really by signing up, and for most assistants, by just doing your job, you'll be able to achieve those 200 points that are necessary to get your $1,500 a year. So I can't stress that enough, how big of an opportunity that is and how important it is, especially for our young assistants on the call. So in 2024, we launched this program. Jonathan sent out the pairings. As he said, we have over 270 individuals that are enrolled in deferred comp and were part of this program last year. Just for reference, there's over 700 individuals that are part of the section. So although we have one of the best percentages in enrollment in deferred comp, I think we can get a lot better. And then we have a lot of room for growth with deferred comp, and we view mentorship as one of the key initiatives on getting people involved in this. So we had some mixed reviews, and we had some very good stories. We also had some confusion around the mentorship pairings last year. So going into this year, we're looking to better support those pairings and give our professionals more of an ability and a network to find mentorship the way that you want to find mentorship. As Bob mentioned on the call, a lot of mentorship is passive. So if you're at your club, it's learning and watching and paying attention. We want to give more opportunities for our professionals to interact with each other and watch and learn and grow along the way. So we have a number of individuals that have volunteered and have been selected as Met PGA mentorship captains this year. They are joining us on this call. So we have made the decision to split the section up into regions to give a little bit more accessibility to our mentorship program and to our captains when support is needed. So those regions are Connecticut, led by John DiPilato, who is also joining me as our liaison to the assistant board from the Met Board of Representatives, Board of Directors. In Westchester, that's Joe Condomini. We saw Joe on the call earlier with Bob. In Rockland County, we have Mike Laudine. And in Western Long Island, we have Pat Gunning. And Western Long Island is myself, Reed Howie. And in Eastern Long Island, we have Pat Gunning, who have all kind of volunteered to lead those initiatives. On the assistance side, Chris Paulino is going to be leading our assistance initiatives and leading our team of assistants in mentorship and some mentorship activities there. And on the ladies' side, we have Wendy Modich, who has volunteered to kind of head up efforts on the female side of things. So we have an incredible team. For those of you that don't know those individuals, you and are enrolled in the deferred comp program, you will be getting communication from them within your region on how to get involved and how to engage in some of our activities that we're planning. And encourage you, just like we said on the call earlier, encourage you to reach out to these individuals whenever needed. So everybody that is part of the deferred comp program, everybody that elects to be involved with the mentorship program will be assigned either a mentor or a mentee or both in some situations. And we really want you to engage with those individuals. We want to make sure that these relationships, whether they're purely professional or they're more personal, we want people to feel comfortable reaching out to those individuals and being able to have some conversations when we as professionals need support. That's really at the through line and the baseline for what we're trying to build here in the Met section. Mentorship is a big word. It's an intimidating word. It's like Bob said, it's not a word that's always been used. It's kind of falls under a giant umbrella, but really building community and building relationships that help make each other better as professionals is our long-term goal and our goal of this program. So we really encourage everybody to get involved. The deferred comp program is the backbone of that program. But at the same time, we think that it has a lot farther and bigger reach for our professionals and for our communities at large.
Yeah, Reed, well said. I'll pop in here. You mentioned like some of the I would say gently as a pain point was that I think all of us are instinctively a mentor. We all like to take care of someone else, just like the game of golf. We like to leave it better than we found it. But being that mentee is also a totally different mindset to be able to accept advice or seek advice when you may not feel that you need it was unique. And we, after year one, we're very much aware of that. So what the mentorship initiative is starting to transition into is more of like a networking opportunity for our professionals, and the captains are tasked with creating collision points within your little region so that you all can not only see your mentor or mentee in person, but also along the way get to develop relationships with the other professionals that are enrolled in the mentorship initiative. And so an event would look like an evening hangout at a restaurant, or possibly if you're in Suffolk County would be at the beach, right? For people just to get together, share stories of what's going on throughout the year, get to know one another, and then build some closer bonds all through these collision points that will be created by the captains. So I think, Reed, it was a great idea to regionalize this, put people in charge of creating these networking opportunities within the region, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, Jonathan, exactly. And we know a lot of these relationships are already present in the section. I know Pat's been doing a lot of work out on the East End anyway, to kind of build community and build some of these networks. I know we all as head professionals have our group chats, and we already conduct the regional roundtables. So a lot of this we're looking to kind of further engage and further initiate and further involve the greater collection of professionals within the section, within some of those groups, and give a little bit more of expanded access to these communities that are already present in a lot of ways. I know, Wendy, you mentioned on the ladies' side there was a really good kind of conversation through COVID in a good group that you guys had established, and so that's another perfect example. So a lot of this is already happening organically. We've identified these individuals kind of within the section as connectors and people that can that are here to help and here to support. And we encourage everybody not only on this call, but broadly within the section to reach out to these individuals and get involved with some of these activities that are going to be coming down the pike for the 2025 and 2026 season. Because I think we can really make a difference, and it's going to start slow, but we can build this into a special program within the section. Now, I'd like to invite anybody on the call, if they have questions regarding our mentorship initiatives, mentorship programs, if we can address those now in kind of the group setting. Happy to hear any feedback from the program last year, or anything that we as a group can address going forward. So either throw those in the chat, or you can jump in and interject on the call, whichever you're more comfortable with. And we can spend a few minutes wrapping up our conversation with a discussion about some of our mentorship initiatives or questions. All right.
One thing to note, as far as our timeline is concerned, that I think that the big reveal is always something that we're eagerly anticipating. And so we'll be probably rolling out the pairings looking at like April 1st or the first week in April. That way, throughout our events, certainly the Metropolitan PGA Spring Meeting, our educational forum, our tournaments, that you can become more familiar and at least be able to identify who your mentee is.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of that, those pairings will be coming out kind of March 31st, April 1st, correct, Jonathan?
That's correct. Yep. And for those that are not enrolled in deferred comp, please be on the lookout for section communication and to complete a form to officially enroll in it, and it will create the pairings.
And for
also logistics, read also one more thing. We run the mentorship program on the deferred compensation cycle. So it's going to run April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2026. So that pairing will be consistent throughout that fiscal, which runs on the PGA of America fiscal year. So you will have your mentorship or mentor pairing from April 1st to March 31st. And then come 2026, we will repair again.
Exactly. And also for those who were in the program in 2024 and 2025, your pairings will change. So the individuals that you were paired with is going to change. And a lot of that is about creating more collision points, being able to build a bigger net and more relationships, more networks within the section. So we didn't want to keep pairings the same, roll those forward. We want to diversify ourselves as professionals as well. There's multiple relationships, multiple people we can learn from out there. So we want to make sure that each individual gets to hear a fresh voice, fresh face for over the next year. So Jim Fatsy put into the chat here, for everybody in the room that's not a captain. And one thing we want to discuss, and one thing that came up as part of the feedback we got from the mentorship program last year is there's a little bit of a stigma around being assigned as a mentee, especially for head professionals and people that are maybe older and more experienced. But I think it's important to note that we all can use mentors at any point in our lives, at any point in our careers. We should all be looking for those people around us that are doing things better than we are, because there's always people that you can find. And always, I think one thing that I've taken from Bob to kind of tie it back to our conversation is he's always been looking for those individuals that do things better, do things a little bit differently. And he's always kind of kept that in the front of his mind of who's doing something that I'm not, or who's doing something a little bit better. And those are the people that he identified as mentors within his career. And he never stopped doing that until really up even through his retirement in either job, either shop. So Jim, thanks for chiming in with that. And I really appreciate that. We all should be looking for mentors within our lives. And these mentors don't have to be directly through the deferred comp program. Encourage you to reach out, look for the individuals that are successful in the professional world outside of golf. Look for your fellow professionals. Look for anybody that's operating at a high level, and try to imitate what they're doing to the greatest extent possible, and try to find how they can be a mentor to you, either directly or indirectly. Any of our captains have anything to add? Jack, any closing words, any parting thoughts?
Reed, just want to say great job, unbelievable turnout on this meeting. Thank you to Bob, obviously, for taking the time out of his day to do it. And just one closing thought to the assistants who are working their way up to their goals. Reach out to other golf professionals in your neighborhood, not just the ones that you work with. If you see a golf professional doing some good stuff, like this committee is doing some good stuff to help each other, reach out to them, give them a call, pick up the phone and call them and say, I'd like to spend a little time with you. Take them to lunch, just go over and hang out with them for a half hour or something. It's something that I think we have an asset within our section, not only within our section, but a bigger asset. And I think if I could give some advice to the assistants, take advantage of all the veteran golf professionals that really want to help. We have a lot of them in the med section, and I know if you called, they would help. So that would be my only thought.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. Jonathan, any last thoughts?
No, Reed, just thanks. Really excited for a great year ahead. Looking forward to seeing you all at the spring meeting that's coming up shortly. And nice job today, Reed. Thank you for your participation.
Awesome. Jim, I saw you jump on. Do you have any parting thoughts?
Sure. If I can add to everybody, I think the one neat thing that I learned today, just first of all, anytime you get Bob Ford on a call in this situation, it's just so valuable, such valuable information. For those, all of you in the room that work for him, wow, what an amazing part of your career. And the one point I want to just touch on is what I learned is, if you're ever in a situation, maybe you have a challenging situation with an assistant or a member, just ask yourself the question, what would Bob Ford do? And you'll get the right answer on how to handle that.
And if you don't know how Bob would handle that, call Jack Druga.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Awesome stuff.
Thanks.
Great job.
Take care. Good work.